Unfortunately, there has been another murder, knife crime murder in London that neither the police nor the mainstream media have decided to tell us about. And I am only aware of it because of video footage shown on social media, where again the public are sharing news more than the establishment and the mainstream media. Now, this took place in West Drayton last night, and this should not be confused with another incident about 3 weeks ago in West Drayton, which involved knives, involved gang fight, many men and young men fighting in the streets of West Drayton, where one man was left with stab wounds and a 15-year-old with severe head injuries. And since then, to be fair, that was covered by some of the mainstream media and has went silent since. So I don't know if anybody's been arrested and things like that. However, last night on Twitter, I saw footage of a crime scene in West Drayton. And unfortunately, the man has died. And it appears through the locals commenting that the perpetrator was described as an Afghan. Whether that is an Afghan asylum seeker or not will remain to be seen. And this does not sit well because there has been recent protests at an asylum hotel in Hillingdon, close by, and I just hope that none of those two facts are connected. However, history tells us I'm probably wrong. So what do we know about this latest incident? So last night there was a mass stabbing that's been described in the Medway Gardens area of the Royal Borough of Hillingdon, near Uxbridge in West Drayton in West London. Reports from locals and eyewitnesses, as I say, described this violent attack where multiple people have been stabbed, with one confirmed fatality and several injuries. The incident sparked significant online discussion, particularly on X, amid broader concerns about knife crime and immigration in the UK. Now, I did check just before hitting the record button, and there is still no update on the police websites, although they have updated their website this morning with some additional statements being released this morning about other crimes, but nothing about this fatality, which can only mean one of two things. Either they don't want to tell you, or it's that insignificant now because knife crime is such a mad thing in London that it doesn't regard or doesn't require being reported and the public to be made aware. I'm not sure which possibility I find more frightening. However, up until 5 minutes ago, which would have been about 10:30, there was no comment from the Met Police. So everything I'm telling you is unverified. However, that only is a word if you don't believe the public, because the public have told us exactly what's happened. So this is about 5 miles from the centre of West Drayton, this Oak Farm estate in Hillingdon, and is often described as West Drayton. It's a residential area, there's local amenities nearby, shops, etc. And there's at least 3 people being stabbed multiple times. One victim is reported dead, with others sustaining serious knife injuries and receiving treatment at the scene by paramedics. There's no ages, there's no genders, no identities have been given for the victims. The police did arrive quickly and they deployed a taser and arrested a man. So they have a suspect, and there was no more casualties after that. A heavy emergency presence was reported, including multiple police vehicles and ambulances, with the flashing blue lights all over the place, and a murder investigation seems to be underway. Though unconfirmed officially, local residents have shown footage which would suggest, and you would imagine with a man dead in the street, one would hope there was a murder investigation underway. But videos did come out last night showing chaos round about the area and streets cordoned off. The attack happened sometime around 10 to 11 p.m. That's when posts started circulating and getting a bit of traction. Now this is unfortunately fitting into this horrific thing that I've spoken about many times, and that is the knife crimes in the UK as a whole, but in particular in London. And there's over 14,000 knife offences reported up until June 2025, sorry, a rotating year. So that's what, 1,000 plus per month. That's 200 to 300 per week. That's 30 to 40 every day. That's at least one an hour, over one an hour. These figures are just bonkers, and obviously a lot of people have been critical about Sadiq Khan and looking for tighter knife control, and the fact that we're not giving people custodial sentences for knife crime means that you're almost accepting it. And we need to be harsher, because if we have stricter sentencing for knife crime, whether or not it was used or not, you would see that have an impact on the amount of knives on our street. That's just common sense and logic. And obviously we've got to tie it in with the suspect being named by the members of the public as an Afghan. We've not got a motive at this point, but we know a man was arrested because they tasered him and took him away in a big police van. So that's kind of where we're at. And as I say, do not get this mixed up with the events 3 weeks ago. I think it was around about the 6th or 7th of October, when there was a gang fight involving many men and young men in West Drayton. Behind me is Glasgow Sheriff Court, one of Europe's busiest courts. And because of that fact, we'll see every week several members of the public and podcasters, etc., facing trials in here for a number of things. However, an increasing number are for posts on social media, videos on YouTube, etc., etc., etc. And for that reason and that reason alone, I believe it would make sense for everybody who does podcasts as a minimum to join the Free Speech Union, because they will help protect you when the law turns on you. That doesn't give you carte blanche to say what you want as a member, but it does give you the protection to help you when the law goes wrong. This is not now only something that should be considered by podcasters, because we are seeing more and more people each day arrested. Normal people who don't even see themselves as civilian journalists, arrested for posts on social media. So it makes sense to join the Free Speech Union, because we live in this country in 2025. But the last we've heard about that in the mainstream was 3 weeks ago. We've had no follow-up since. And that is a bit disgusting to me. This crime, it doesn't matter the skin colour, the religion, the nationality of the perpetrator. But yet again, we see a crime that appears to have been carried out by a foreigner who may or may not be an asylum seeker, and there seems to be a desire to not talk about it publicly, whether that be through our mainstream or our police force. And I do hope that later on today, at some point, once the man's possibly been processed and stood in a court, if they can get him into court today, then we might see some sort of statements from the police and or the mainstream media. But it does look as if this is another crime committed on our streets, horrendous conditions, by a migrant, legal or otherwise. If you want others to see this video, hit the thumbs up, put your comments below and hit the share button. If you've not already done so, check that you are subscribed, because some people are becoming unsubscribed, which is slightly strange. And if you're not subscribed, hit the subscribe button below, please, and help build the channel, as it's going through a rough period just now in the last 3 months, where YouTube have not been as keen as previous to share my videos. However, more important than all that, unless you're the type of person that wants to come to these shores, legal or otherwise, and commit terrible crimes, then not you. But everyone else, have a great day. Cheery bye now.